Welcome to the Color of Success podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie J. Wong. Many of us are feeling a wide range of emotions: sadness, anger, fear, sometimes hopelessness and helplessness. This season, we will be exploring all the feelings and ways to empower each other to take action. So, let's go. Game on. Before Barbie diversified and before TikTok collapsed borders, Yue-Sai Kan was already rewriting what was possible for women in China and beyond. An Emmy award-winning TV host, best-selling author, entrepreneur, and philanthropist, she built a multi-billion-dollar empire while modernizing the image of Chinese women and bridging East-West culture through media and beauty. Her memoir, The Most Famous Woman in China, out October 21st, offers an unfiltered look at the highs and obstacles of being a cultural disruptor and the challenges she faced as a woman of color carving space in multiple industries. It includes never-before-seen archives, photos, and QR-linked video interviews. All proceeds benefit the Yue-Sai Kan One World Foundation, which supports global citizenship and education. Yue-Sai, thank you so much for joining me today. I wore my classic red lip. We're women of the same heart, and I found out you started the trend. So thank you so much for being here.
Well, I'm so happy to be here. Look at you. You're my perfect model.
It's a dream. Well, you've mentioned that you haven't done one easy thing in your life. And I really want to dive deeper into what led you to do a TV show and really bring this East and West cultural collaboration together.
I just think that even in those days, in the early 70s and the late 70s and early 80s, all those times, even as early as that, I was saying that people really don't know each other. I mean, the East doesn't know the West. The East knows more about the West than the West knows about the East, that's for sure. So that's the reason why I did a show called Looking East. At the beginning, I really thought that nobody would watch the show because it's about Asia, right? But it was the first time anybody did a program about Asia for the American public. And to my surprise, actually, after doing a whole year of I was helping a friend of mine in a Chinese TV station to help him. And I realized that if you do the program correctly and you do it well, there will be people who watch you. Definitely, there will be people who watch you. So it all depends how you present your culture. And it's so important for us to know each other's culture because, we are all human beings. We are the same, really. Even though, we may have, our features are different, but the same, we're human beings. So I wanted to use my television show to actually show each other that we're the same, that we have the same loves, some expectations, the same worries, the same everything. So I did the show called Looking East, and it was started from the late 70s to the 80s. And that was how I did it. And now, why was it difficult? I haven't done anything easy. That's true. How could it be easy when nobody even believed it? I remember Mike Wallace said to me, he said, well, don't do a program about Asia because nobody cares about Asia. So I said, oh, well, maybe you think there's nobody who cares about Asia, but there are people. I mean, I could tell people when I did that little tiny show in the Chinese TV, and if I did a program very well, people actually would call the station, and it actually was shocking to me that people will do that. So I loved it. So I knew there would be enough people around who would be interested in doing at least understanding Asia more. So I was right. Look at today. Isn't Asia the most exciting place in the world today? It's amazing, right? Asia is the fastest growing place in the world today, area in the world today. But why is it so difficult? Because if there are people who actually didn't believe in it, so you really had to plow through the difficulty, right? When I started doing my television show, my goodness, in those days, you have to understand television was expensive to do. Today, you and I, we can be on the internet, and it's easy. You and I can exchange a lot of ideas and stuff. But in those days, television was a really, really expensive thing to do. So doing television, it was impossible to find people. I mean, it's just the whole thing was very, very difficult. And also, you have to convince people that you do a very good show, right? So that people can actually would see your show. So what the whole thing was just very, very difficult in those days. So that's television. And then I did a television show in China. That was even worse, right? It was even worse.
What was hard about it?
Oh, hard because in those days, China Central Television really had only 6 hours of broadcast a month, a day, and then also it's a very poor television station because it had no consumerism. In the 80s, China just opened. Deng Xiaoping says that let's open China. This is the policy of opening China. But it was a time when nobody knew anything about China. There was no consumer products to be sold. When a television station has money, it is because there are products to be sold. People who are willing to buy advertising. So they wanted to do a series with me about the world, to introduce the world to China, but they had no money to pay me. Even that I had to go out to get advertiser. But the most difficult thing for me is that after I signed the contract, which said that I had to produce a series for China to explain the world to them, it's the first television series of its kind, in China. But it was a time when I could not speak a word of Chinese. So
I was going to say, I read that you had to learn Mandarin. That is so impressive. I'm studying Korean for the past several years, and I still talk like an elementary school student. So walk me through how you learned the language.
I want to learn Korean.
Why do I want to learn Korean? I loved Korean dramas and I wanted to be able to go to the bathroom and not pause it. That was my initial. And then 7 years later, I love BTS and K-pop and all that. And I have a lot of friends that speak Korean. So it's been one of those just really great things that I have for myself. I have 2 kids and I'm like, this is just one of my hobbies.
Oh, okay. I'm learning Spanish, and
Oh,
only because I like Spanish songs, right? Well, that is exactly why we're learning these things. But at that time, I couldn't speak a word of Mandarin, and I was supposed to host a show in Mandarin. And so, how did I study it? Well, for the first 6 months, I was doing after work 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock every day. On the weekends, it's like 9 o'clock to 9 o'clock at night, 9 in the morning to 9 o'clock at night. I did this for 6 months, and then I continued not as a hectic schedule, but I really wanted to submerge myself in it as much as possible. That was really, really hard because learning learning a language really well is not simple. It's not easy to do, right?
yeah.
So especially, don't forget, I was learning the Mandarin to be on camera. So that
Yes.
was harder than ever. It's not just like I'm watching a TV show. There's some subtitling that I can understand at least. But in the television show, you need to really, really speak. Not so much. I don't think that I wanted to get rid of accents per se. I think people like accents. That's not a problem. But if your accent is so bad that people could not understand you, then as a broadcaster, you're not doing your job. So that was a very, very heavy burden on me to be able
Yes.
to Chinese in order for me to film the series. Yeah.
Yeah, and I see a lot of parallels between us, and that's why I was so excited because, I've been doing this podcast since the pandemic, and it was more so to talk about mental health among Asian Americans and Asians because it's just really stigmatized. And I think learning from folks like yourself about how to cope through these very difficult situations and building businesses and, learning new languages, there's a certain set of coping skills that we need. And I'd love to hear your wisdom about because isms still exist, sexism, racism, and I know that there's more Asian representation in the media and on screen, but we still face those challenges. So I'm wondering if you can share that wisdom with us.
Well, actually, at this moment, there's a lot of racism. I was having lunch with a friend of mine from Vancouver, and I was very surprised, even in Vancouver, especially during the COVID time. She said
Hmm.
that there will be white people driving around and doing this to them because they are Chinese, right?
Wow.
There is a racism in this country, even though we know that it's a country with open board. Basically, we are all immigrants. I came as
Yes.
an right, but as you can see, you know, uh, even now today, especially during COVID time, there were many Asians killed. Like in the subway and
On near their homes, in the streets. Yeah.
everything. So there is, I how do you navigate it? It's a matter of luck, actually, Stephanie. I mean, there's a woman I know who was just walking on the street, and there was not even in the evening time, not a very dangerous place. Somebody just poured acid on her face. So like, it's like if you're unlucky, you really have this problem, really have this problem. But you just try to navigate it by, let's say, be very careful about where you go, be very careful about a lot of the things that you do. And I don't go around in very dark places at night. So this is how we. But another thing is that I think that is interesting is that I think that the more you are adopted into this culture, the more you are not really looked down upon. For example, I always tell my Chinese friends, I said, you want to be part of the society here, you must learn very good English. If you don't speak good English, you're not doing it. You just people. Americans are interesting. If you don't speak very good English, they think that you just got off the boat and therefore you are not really high society. So my feeling always is that, hey, even though I'm a immigrant, I want to make sure that I know everything about your culture. I want to make sure that I speak as good English as you speak. Those are the very important things I think we have to be aware of. You need to look good, for example. You don't want to look like you just got off the boat. So those are the things that I pay a lot of attention to. I remember I have a very good girlfriend, and she's a lady. She's married to a lord in UK. One time I went out with her. I wanted to go out with her to go shopping, and it was just around the corner from her house, and I said, let's hurry up, because we don't have that. She said, oh, no, 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 I must look good. And I said, why do you have to look good? It's around the corner. She said, because I'm Chinese. She said that if people take one look at me and they know what I represent, and I want to show the best face. I never heard anybody say that either. Okay. But when I heard her say that, I realized that she feels, and whether right or wrong, is not for me to judge. She feels that she represents the Chinese race, and she needs to be good. So well, it's up to you.
Absolutely. Well, I think that that's really important lessons because I know that for your program, you were showing different countries and cultures to China and vice versa. And so, how did you go about kind of because it's a very you don't want to overgeneralize and at the same time like you want to share general trends, but how did you approach like showing culture on screen?
Oh, I've done this all my life. It's like, and starting from the 70s, I have been doing programs about culture. Even today, I'm doing programs about
Yes.
culture, right? I mean, hopefully you have seen my social media series, and which is really a fun series that I'm doing. I mean, I take it very seriously, but it's not a money making thing, and I don't need to, try to get sponsors and or try very hard to get a lot of money to do it because it's done on a social media level. It's not like, as I said, in the old days when I really need so much money to do TV documentaries. But what we are doing now is really the new world, right? And,
Yes.
uh, and people are very used to this kind of world today. And so So I like very much introducing the culture to people because people learn 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 by watching what I do, what you do, right? So it makes me feel that we're doing something good for our cultures. It's good that people know each other. Why is there wars? Wars because people don't understand each other very well. People almost forget, right? Forget that we're
Absolutely.
human beings.
That's another reason I love Korean beauty products and exploring makeup and skincare. And it's inspiring that you started your own cosmetics company very early on. What inspired you to do that and continue that in a now crowded market?
Well, when I started cosmetics in China, there was no cosmetics in China. And they say that the best time to do it is when there is nothing, right? So in terms of business, there is an empty space for you to go after. So I that was actually a secondary thought. The first thought was that I know that China is going to open, and China, once it's open, is going to be like America, where all the women are going to be using makeup. And while when there is no makeup in China, I said, well, let's bring makeup to China because women will want to look very good, right? Women would want to look very like the Western world. So I said, let's do that and let's invest. The reason why I dared to invest is because I I saw how open the Chinese government was to my television show. When I did a television series for CCTV, they never told me what to do and what not to do. Well, first of all, I don't think they knew what to tell me anyway.
But
What
still, that's free reign right there, and that's amazing. It's not the same even now.
it is amazing that they did that to me. And when I did three programs for the ministry to see whether they would approve the program before the program came on the air, and they looked at me. I was wearing very dull clothes, just like their host at that time on TV. And I wore very little makeup, certainly not red lipstick, not right. It was not was not what really was not what we look like in America, right? So, but after I showed them the three shows, they said, "Is this the way?" They asked me, "Is this the way you do TV shows in America?" I said, "No." So, well, then in that case, we want you to do it exactly the way you do it in America. Yeah, I said, well, you mean I can wear lipsticks, I can wear earrings, I can wear colors? They said, yes, you do it the way you do it in America so that we see the world as the world is. So I just went ahead and did my thing. So with the kind of open mind that I noticed, I knew that the Chinese are going to really be serious opening itself. So when the time came that I said, okay, we would invest in a cosmetic company. Yeah. Well, when there is nobody using it, of course, it's a very, very difficult thing to do, right? So you really have to educate them. You have to imagine in the days when those were the days when no one was using makeup. The only two kinds of people that use makeup are the people on stage, right? And the
Right.
other kind is the hookers will be using.
Yeah.
So in a country like this, that really means that you have to really, really educate them. So I did endless demonstrations across the country. I did endless, lecture demonstrations across the country. I appeared on every counters that I created. I did a lot of shows, a lot of TV shows. I went all over the country to popularize the use of cosmetics. But more importantly, I wasn't really telling them it's that important to use cosmetics. It is more important the idea that you use it to empower women. What do I mean by that? It is that if you can change the way you look, you can do anything. Now, this is a very, very new concept for the Chinese woman at that time, particularly at that time. As you know, in those days, they wore the same kind of clothes. They used no makeup whatsoever. And if you are, there's a very famous saying that if you are nails sticking up, sticking out, you'll have to hammer it down, right? So in other words, nobody wants to be individualized. But I said to them, I said, look, yes, you can. You can be the best you can look. You can change. If you can change the way you look, you can change anything else that you are. So it was much more of the spirit that I want to impart into Chinese women, that they can be more than what they were supposed to be. One of the 500 million women, right? You can be yourself. You could express yourself. So it's a way of empowering women as well, to give them confidence of themselves. And it's a multiple message that I was giving, not just the fact using cosmetics.
And I can attest, like that red lip makes you feel bold. It gives you that, it does give you confidence that you
Yeah.
are unique.
Don't you sometimes feel, like if you just get up and you look awful, you're feeling sick, and you don't want to see anybody, right? I mean, if you are, that if you look as good as you do now, I mean, you can be anywhere. So what I'm saying is that, it's somehow, it is wonderful to know that there is something called makeup, right?
Mhm.
This makeup actually emboldens you. It gives you confidence. I always say that a beautiful woman is a confident woman. That's what I always say, because that's why I did Miss Universe China. And you teach them how to be confident. You teach them to walk and talk and, answer questions and look good, the best they can.
Well, I understand why you got the tagline, the most famous woman in China, but tell me how that tagline came about.
I did not call myself the most famous woman in China. Actually, People magazine called me the most famous woman in China. But the idea, I mean, look, to be very famous is very simple. Seriously, Stephanie, I always say that if you are naked walking around in Tiananmen Square for an hour, you'll be very famous. You'll be world.
That's true.
But seriously, what is the most important thing about the book itself is and how she did it and how she did it. This is the 5 words that really is the summary of the book itself. Being famous is in itself is not a very big deal, but maybe the story is my odyssey. How did I become the most famous woman in China? I think that in itself is more of an interesting story, not just becoming famous, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't remember any time that I was not famous anyway. The first day I walked into China, I was already very famous because at that time my television series already was airing in China. So when I came into China, I was already being famous is not something that I don't know about anything about. But being famous is in itself is not the important thing. It's what you do with what you're famous for, right? That itself is far more important. Far more important. By the way, I have another book. I have another edition, which is a Chinese edition in China, called "你自成先锋," You Be a Pioneer. The book itself is the same. The story is the same. It's about my life. But this book is a it's written for the Chinese audience, and the American audience is a different title. Only because my publisher says you're basically rather unknown in America, even though you're a household name in China. We want to find a name that is very catchy. So I remember we went out we did a number of names. Time magazine called me the Queen of the Middle Kingdom. What is it? I mean, the names like the first influencer in China, things like that. But nothing was better than this, the most famous woman in China, don't you think?
Oh yeah, it just piques your interest, and you're just like, and how did she do that? So
That is the fun part. That's the fun part. And don't forget, I entered China when China was just beginning to open. So I know that there's a lot of negativities about China, but the entire time that I've been working in China has been a very exciting time. I see firsthand the the unbelievable transformation from the poorest of poor countries into today the second biggest GDP in the world. So how did that happen? What I went through is almost like almost a reflection of what is happening in China. And going to China, especially in those days, was unbelievable. The people were so excited about opening. There's so much hope. There's so much energy. There's so much excitement. It's difficult for me to even explain. But of course, as I said, doing business in China, like everything else I've done, is very difficult. Even especially like you're introducing a product that they never used. Could not imagine. I would say that 99% of the women in China could not imagine smearing anything on their faces. So it was very daunting in that sense. Yeah.
Well, I know that you went through quite a few challenges physically. I'm sure now the word is burnout, but you were really getting out there. Now it's called hustling and like really trying to get sponsorships, advertisements and all that. What are your lessons learned to kind of share with folks that are starting new projects and initiatives that really do challenge you mentally and physically?
Oh, whenever I do anything, before I do anything, I ask myself three very important questions. And, a lot of people have problem making choices. And what I'm saying is just the way I do it. Maybe the three questions I ask always is, number one, do I have the real talent to do this? If I were to do a television series for CCTV, do I have the talent to do it? Yes, of course I do. I could do it better than anybody else because I knew the Chinese, I knew the Americans, I knew the outside world much better than the Chinese did. So I knew I had the talent to do it. Am I better than most people? I would say to you, yes, I did. I have more possibilities of doing that series than anybody else. The second question I always ask is, by the way, a lot of people think that they don't have talent. And that's really not true. Everybody has his own talent, right? I have a very good girlfriend. She loved to cook. She loved to cook. And she had, I remember she only started a restaurant with 8 tables, little tables. And now she has 450 tables, and she's gone public with her love for something like that. You need to have passion. If you're not passionate about what you are going to do, then forget about it. You're never going to be successful. Then what is passion? She worked like hell to get 450 open. I worked like hell to have 800 stores open, right? So by the time I sold my company to L'Oreal, I already had 800 stores. I had 3 factories, and I have 24 local companies that I founded to do my businesses there. So if I didn't have the passion, don't have the conviction that this is what I want to do, you will never succeed. You need to have that kind of passion. What is passion? When I start writing a book at 8 at night, sometimes when I look up the clock again, it will be 4 a.m. You forget the time because you're so submerged into what you do. I feel very sorry for some people who say, oh God, I have to go to work again. But working is so difficult for you. You find it to be such a drag. You will never be successful in what you do. So I think passion is the second most important thing. The third thing I always ask myself is, what I'm trying to do or what I would like to do, is it good for other people as well? If it's just merely good for me, well, then it's easy. I can be a drug dealer, and I can, I might be very good in selling drugs, and I might be passionate about making money and selling drugs. But when it comes to the third question you ask, is it good for other people? It's very hard to answer yes. If you can answer all 3 questions, yes, I think your chances of success might be good, especially the first 2. So I think you need to really know how to make choices. And even when I want to write a book, I ask these 3 questions. Most of the things that I do, I ask these questions. When you say that venturing into new initiative, you ask me the question, right? When you want to go into a business, sometimes some people get very confused with business and hobbies. Of course, the most wonderful if you can put your hobby into business, right? But you cannot confuse those 2 either. Like you cannot be Yao Ming, if you are short, even though you love very much playing basketball. So there is some limitations for it. And the other thing is that, I have a girlfriend just told me, I just asked her, I said, why you are starting a new business? Why you have this Mercedes Benz, driving around? You have this big, gigantic office. She said, well, I want people to know that I am financially okay. So I said to myself, wow, I'm absolutely the opposite. For years and years, I was doing television in my one bedroom apartment. I used my bedroom to do recordings. I used my living room to do interviews. I used my dining table to do research and work with my assistants and everything. I wanted to live like a pauper, absolute pauper, until I can get my business on the ground. I mean, my feet had to be really firmly planted on the ground before I could use any extra money. So I think that's very important to remember that at the beginning, your money, whatever money you have to start the business, is so finite. Sometimes I say finite is because money is a finite thing. It's very interesting. Money is, if you need $1 and you don't have $1, you're dead. You are bankrupt, right? I mean, it's that finite in terms of money. People have to understand that very, very much. And then, and a lot of people say to me, my business is going to make billions, and this is going to be that good and that good. I look at them and I say, wow, that's really nice that you're saying that you're going to be so successful. But the question I ask myself is never, I'm never thinking, oh, how successful I am. Because if you know that this is a good project to do, you know that it's going to be okay. However, the question I ask myself is, what are the elements that will make my business fail? It's not what will make me successful per se. It's the other way around. What will make my business fail? Now, you may think that it sounds like the same. It's not the same. It's just not the same. So I'm always concerned, what I can be wrong. For example, if I launch a product, what can be wrong? What could go wrong? Is it packaging? Is it the message? Is it the ingredients? I mean, you need to know what could go wrong. What will make me fail?
That's amazing. And I think it is very different and nuanced for people to ask that question. And especially in a world where right now there's a lot of, how am I going to monetize, my social media content and all these things? And it just becomes very dangerous where people may be compromising some of their values and their morals to get a buck. And it's very powerful. So obviously I'm a psychologist. So what have you learned about how to manage mental and physical health as you're doing all these projects, even if you find passion and answer those very important questions?
Very good question. You're totally right. You know that there's an epidemic of young people that are actually really depressed. I have been reading about this recently, and it's really shocking to me to know how many people. And just this morning, I read a story about how two young people just jumped from the top of a building and killed themselves. And it's shocking that epidemic is so rampant. It's all over the world, not just let's say New York or Shanghai, right? So it's very interesting. So you make me think back of how I managed my mental and physical health, especially when I was running the business. And I tell you, doing business in China is not very easy. It's very complicated because business is cultural. You need to know the culture very well in order to really do very well. And while I'm learning culture, I also have to learn the whole thing about doing business, right? So it was really, really very, very hectic. And I remember I used to feel that, that I'm just so burned out. Today, the word burned out is very normal. In those days, I said to myself, I don't feel myself anymore. I mean, it's just, I'm working so hard. I don't know what I am. Just impossible. What do? I have a little escape. From Shanghai, I go to a place called Chivasom in Bangkok. I've been going there for like 30 years. And that place is a place where I call the place that I find my own body, you know. And sometimes I would go there like very early Friday morning. I come back Monday night, and I would just spend 4 days there. And I just eat very healthy food. I exercise all day, you know, so I find my own body again, right? And spend time on myself instead of on everything else that I had to do in a business. So I find that to be extremely important for me. And so that's the reason why I always go to these health spas. I like them very much. I try everything. I go to Europe. I'm in India. I am in America, and of course I'm in Thailand too. So I try. This is my way of coping with it. Many different people have different ways of coping with it. This is just my way.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned how bridging cultures is so important, and really at the foundation, there's understanding. How do you think that we can continue to build that bridge versus promoting division?
But I still, you know, if I look back into my life, you know, actually starting from the 70s to today, I'm still doing cross-cultural communication. You know that my television shows are all that, right? Looking East, One World, and all the TV series I did on PBS, they were all trying to understand, make sure that we understand each other better. So I've been doing that. Even today, you say that you see my series called One World, which is on social media, which I'm very happy. I mean, I just started it I really just started it very little while ago, maybe 10 months ago now. It's called the Yue-Sai Kan One World Foundation. And this thing I do for 10, it's been 10 months, yeah. 869,000 subscribers, not 800. And my most popular, every 2 weeks, I post one. How often do you post yours, Stephanie?
I try to do every week.
Sometimes it's hard, but every 2 weeks I post one episode, okay? And the the longest we have is about 10 minutes, and the normal one about 4 minutes and 4.5 minutes. And this is probably the most interesting thing for me to learn. That, you know, when I used to do only 1 hour shows, now it's so short these days. But the most popular one I have ever done is I have 3 million people watching one episode, which I think it was very interesting. And I said, wow, this is really pretty cool. And I like it. This is a newfound way for me to promote cultures. And that 3 million viewers that were watching something called xiaolongbao, you know, they
Yes.
dumpling, right?
Now they're in Costco, so it's
Yeah,
definitely spread to mainstream.
yeah. And also the followed by one that I did for almost 4 minutes, and it's about one of Egypt's most expensive tombs. And you know about Egypt. Wherever I go these days, I just take a couple of camera people with me, and then we would just simply go and do all these programs. And of course, I make it sound like it's not planned. That's not true. We planned it very carefully. Okay. For example, we just went to China, and not just Egypt or Hawaii, but we went to Gansu province.
Mhm.
And I tell you, we had such an extraordinary time in Gansu province, and then there will be segments on Gansu province that will come up. So this series, not only do we have it on YouTube, so it's the Yue-Sai Kan One World Foundation, right? So we also put it on Instagram, the
Yes,
shorts,
yes.
Instagram, and they're in. Oh yeah, we're on TikTok too.
That's amazing.
Assistant just told me we're on TikTok. We're in China, of course. We're on Xiaohongshu. We're on many different, you know, Weibo and all those things. So I'm very happy about what I have just learned. You know, that you can use the short things in a few minutes, or the shorts are even shorter, like sometimes
Yeah.
30.
30 seconds a minute. Yeah.
You can actually make people understand the cultures better. I'm well. I mean, I think it's exciting for me to learn something like that, and it's fun. It's really really fun. At least I'm doing my part, trying to help cross-cultural understanding. And this is all to help with to celebrate global diversity.
Absolutely. Well, and what I love with what you said is that you're a lifelong learner. And I think that's the thing about evolving as a person is continuing to evolve with the times and learn those things. So, and now AI is going to is like exploding right now. So,
would AI be helpful to people with mental problems? Or do you think?
Well, I definitely think it's a compliment. I really am not an advocate for it replacing therapists because I really do think that the person to person interaction is so key to working on issues. However, I do think it could help with like assigning tasks and homework, coping skills so that people have that in front of them in between sessions to really remind them. It can help therapists like with treatment plans and notes and things like that. So you can really focus on the work of, talking person to person, and what we do in mental health, but also spreading accurate information rooted in science is what I'm hoping will be integrated into that, because I think on social media, there's so many people that think they're psychologists or therapists, and you have to be very careful what kind of information you're sharing with people in terms of naming it education. So that's why I'm happy to do this show.
Are your clients more Asians or are they more Caucasians?
So I'm in the Bay Area, so actually a good amount of my clients are Asian. In my private practice, I work with a lot of tech professionals, but we are seeing just various identities come through the door, which is encouraging too, that people are actually seeking the help.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people can't talk about it, particularly Asians, right? It's hard for them to admit. Actually, it's very hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And the last question to wrap it up is where can people buy your book, and where can folks connect with you on your various social media and
Yeah,
channels?
I'd love them to connect with me because I like by the end of the year, I would get 1 million viewers. It would be very fantastic if we could do that. So if you want to, it is really called Yue-Sai Kan One World Foundation. So if you want to take a look at it, it's called Yue-Sai Kan One World Foundation. And it will be, you can just go there and you can subscribe. It is for free. And you just hopefully you will enjoy it. That would really please me if you can just react to me and say, well, I really enjoyed this, whatever. And then the other thing is that you say how to buy your book. This is really on Amazon. And on Amazon, 21st of October.
Yes.
But is coming up. It's cheaper. So go ahead. It's called Yue-Sai Kan, right? Yuesaikan, right? Yue-Sai Kan. On Amazon, this is the only book I have actually in English, even though I have written 10 books in Chinese, but they're not available on Amazon.
Well, thank you so much for spending the time with me. I hope we keep in contact. You're just such an amazing person.
Yes,
and
in contact. Yes, by all means. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much.
So welcome, Stephanie. You're gorgeous.
So are you. I loved talking to you. I'll talk with you soon.
Okay.
Thank you for listening. We would love for you to subscribe to the podcast and join our community on all our socials at colorsuccesspodcast.com. Looking forward to you checking out my memoir, Cancel the Filter, Realities of a Psychologist, Podcaster, and Working Mother of Color on Amazon and wherever books are sold. I'd love to hear your Cancel the Filter moments.